And you can see represented in this chart the likelihood of damage being caused by non-covered peril directly correlates to the age of the water heater. The older the unit, the less likely the damages will be covered. And our data shows the average age of a claimed water heater was right at 10 years old, and that would equate to 33% of the time that loss may be caused by age-related wear and tear. So that also got us the answer to that last knowledge check question. The answer was C again, and the average age of a claimed water heater is right at 10 years old. Now let's take a deeper dive into some of the common wear and tear issues with water heaters. And to emphasize why this is important, wear and tear is actually the second most common cause of loss for water heaters. These units inherently have lots of potential for these types of losses as most people don't maintain their water heaters. They have them installed or buy a house with an existing unit, and they don't give them a second thought until the unit fails and they find themselves without hot water, or worse, a pond of water surrounding the unit and causing damage. We'll start the conversation with conventional tanked electric units. And one thing that is unique to them that fails regularly simply due to use and age are those heating elements. As you see here, these elements from the same unit are not in very good shape and extremely corroded. The good news is, as I mentioned, these elements are easily taken out and replaced, and their failure should not require the replacement of the water heater. With gas units, we heat the water in a very different way than electrics, as we covered earlier, and we see here a view of the burner compartment of a gas water heater. It appears the burner has actually been replaced on this one, but you also notice there's a lot of rust and corrosion around it. In this case, it was not caused by water loss on this claim, and is typical of gas units with all the heating and cooling cycles that the burner compartment does create condensation and subsequently creates rust. And here's an even more dramatic example of rust buildup in the burner of this gas water heater. Sure is hard to believe that this one even worked with that much damage and rust buildup. And there are some wear and tear items that are common to both gas and electric units. And the first one is that anode rod failure. As reviewed earlier, the maintenance and replacement of the anode rod is critical to protect the rest of the water heater components, but people simply don't check them or replace them as needed. You can see how they degrade over time in these pictures, and that is by design, as we discussed. This one still has some life and is doing its job. Although the water tanks have what they call a glass lining, that does not mean they will last forever. Glass lined simply means they have a thin layer of processed enamel on the inside of the tank, and this is done specifically to prevent the metal tank from rusting out prematurely. The problem is that the glass linings don't last forever, and especially if those anode rods are not maintained. These linings can be depleted to nothing in 5 years in some cases. Once gone, the water then starts to rust the metal, and eventually that tank will rust through and leak. Pressure relief valves are also notorious for failing. This one shows some rust and corrosion, but more often they just fail internally, or what a plumber would say, it just let loose, which of course allows hot water to escape and flood the area around the water heater. Usually there's no way to know if a P&T valve is going to fail, but it is one of those things that should be maintained and perhaps even changed out when the anode rods are changed just to be safe. That's why they call it preventive maintenance after all. And our last wear and tear item to review is general corrosion, which all water heaters are susceptible to, especially if they're in a damp basement, humid attic, or have some leaking going on that has not been addressed. Notice this unit and all that rust and corrosion. Obviously, that was not sudden or accidental and has been going on for some time. This unit is suffering from a poor draft, and water is condensing in the flue and dripping back down, causing that damage you see there. And another one showing significant corrosion on the water inlet connection. Again, this is pretty obvious that this has been going on for quite a while.